Yeah, we're live. How's everybody doing? I want to show you. Hopefully, you guys will get to see the when you guys get here, when everybody's here. Tim's here. That's all we need, right? You guys will get to see the dual throttle body inlet when you guys get here. The thing that this the thing I'm talking about. So we know that the air intake or the air inlet system somewhere between I mean, it includes everything. It really on a positive displacement blower. What you want to do is maximize the airflow going into the blower. So anything that's from the ported section of the blower, the inlet, the throttle body size, any sort of intake tube, all of that stuff comes into play when you're talking about, hey, how do I get more airflow into the blower? So that's a critical thing. But there's also something that you can do. It's a little something we like to call style points. And when you see the when you see the photo that I'm talking about, you'll go, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. It might be a little overkill, but that's why we do it. So I'll go ahead and show for the guys who are here. Take a look. So this is what I'm talking about. So this is a Kenny Bell supercharger, and then it has two inlets. I think that these are even bigger. These might be dual 125 throttle bodies on this from AccuFab. So this is ridiculous. These are gigantic. So what they were trying to do is, this was on a Ford GT motor. I think it's either a GT or a GT 500. And they were running that at the dyno way back at West Tech. And this was a big blower that Kenny Bell was doing. And they was doing the stuff with, I think, John from AccuFab. And they were making lots and lots of power on one of these things. But this is one of the inlets that they came up with. Ultimately, they came up with an inlet that's just bolted onto the back of the blower and was short and didn't have these big ram's horns. And it probably works better. It flows enough to support the power level of what we're talking about. But it doesn't look nearly this cool. So the question is, for the poll for tonight, should I make one like that? I don't know if it's going to be that good looking, and I don't know if we need two 225 millimeter throttle bodies on it, but like 290s on it would be good, or two 102s from the LS would be good. I know. So what do you guys think? My favorite turbo. More M90 power. I know I'm going to do that. So I got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight on the M90, but that's why we're here, is the dual inlet thing. I remembered way back when I started thinking about, hey, how should I'm going to do an inlet going into the M90. I'm going to chop the flange off and weld on at least a 4-inch tube. And I thought, I could just put a flange on there and then put the throttle body on there, and at the very least we'll have a 102 millimeter throttle body. But if I do the cool, like, I remembered how Kenny Bell did that thing way back on the Ford GT motor. And so I remember the dual ram's horn deal. And the other thing that would be cool is, with the M90, the way that it runs on the 4.8 or on the 3800, the throttle body's back in the back. So you can't see the throttle opening. And I like to see the throttle opening because I like to make sure we're at wide open throttle. I always go around and kind of check and just make sure that, hey, is that wide open throttle? Yeah, it's wide open throttle. You can kind of see the throttle, the Super Richie throttle linkage from the dyno, from the control room, but it's a lot easier to see the throttle openings, and you could verify, hey, look, they're both at wide open throttle. And if you have two of them, and one of them is more than enough to feed the motor, in this case it would be, because one single 102 or 105 millimeter throttle body would be more than enough to feed what we're trying to do on a little M90 on the LS, even if it's turned up. But two of them would be better, because it's just two of them. And so, it'd take a little bit to weld that stuff together, but it would not be too big of a deal. And this is something I could make out of steel and chrome plate or paint or something. It'd be better if I just did it out of aluminum and it was at least kind of shiny. So that would be cool. But let me know what you guys think. Should that be a thing? Because imagine what the photo is going to look like the thumbnail is going to sell the thing just because I have that. And that's always something to consider. But what we're trying to do with this, in addition to getting cool style points with it, because sometimes, as much as I love junkyard stuff, sometimes you want to make something like be cool also. It's not just, hey, it's cool because it's cheap. Well, yeah, there is that, but it could also be cool because it's cool. And so we could spend all this time and effort putting something on and this is a conversation that I had with the guys from Tick Performance today. Is they're going to supply an intercooler, an air to water intercooler, that sandwiches, because we're using a Holley high ram, and they have a core that works like that. And so they're going to supply that, and then we'll be able to sandwich that. And in addition to that, which in the conversation, he said, yeah, we can solve this problem, because on their core, at least on their low profile core, part of the core is down inside the high ram, inside the common plenum of the high ram. And then part of the core is also up inside the lid for the high ram. And that presented a problem for us, because I have a flat flange for the blower, and it just goes on top of the high ram. So we would have part of that intercooler core sticking up. They have another bigger core that's just flat, and we could bolt that to, but we want to use this core. And then what they're going to do, what they offer, is they make spacers that basically, add more plenum volume, if you were, to a Holley high ram. And that solves two problems. One, it allows us to space this thing up over the intercooler. And then that way we can bolt on that flat flange that I have, the adapter plate, and then the blower can bolt on all this and blow through the intercooler. That solves that problem. But the other thing that I want to try is, when we bolt this blower onto the high ram with no intercooler, the discharge of the blower kind of favors the front 4 cylinders. So if I put two things I want to try when we're doing this test is, and we'll try this without the intercooler first, is I want to try to run 802s. So if we can do that, we can figure out if there's an airfield distribution issue, by monitoring all 8 of the O2s. The other thing that I'm going to do that I don't see a lot of people do is, and this will take multiple runs to do it, but we're there on the dyno, just pulling the handle, is I'm going to hook the map sensor up to each port individually. So I'll just do a run and then move it, and then do a run, move it, and then do a run. And then that way we'll be able to see if there is also a pressure gradient. Because if we see a change in airfield, we're like, okay, well, there's something going on there. Is one of them not getting more? Is it not getting enough fuel, or is it getting too much or not enough airflow? And if we do this with the map sensor, we'll also be able to map each one of the cylinders and then go, oh, look, in this runner, we have 8.1 pounds, and this one we have 8.4 pounds, and this one we have 8.6 pounds, or maybe they'll all be the same. But whatever they are, we'll be able to monitor that. And then what I'll do when I'm doing this test is I'll make multiple runs on one cylinder so that we see what the differential is. That's very important. If you just make one run and then move it, make one run, you could have a change just from one pole to the next pole. So you want to see what that change, what that swing could be. If it moves 0.2 of a pound to boost, you may think, oh, that's a lot. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe it moves that much just from one run to the next. And so that's what doing multiple runs gets you. You're changing the temperature of the blower and stuff. And so you want to see what's going to happen if you just make another run. What happens if I just make another run? Does the airfield stay consistent? Does the boost gate stay consistent? Does all that work? And then that way, when we move it to another port, without changing anything, we're not changing the tune or anything. There's no self-adjusting. There's no closed loop. There's none of that. We just make one run and then we move it. All we're doing is each one of these will have nipples on them that we'll just plug the hose back in, the map sensor is hooked to, and we just plug it in. All the other ones will be plugged naturally, so there's no vacuum leak. And then we also can do the leak tests, the what's it called? The bubbler test. So we could take one of them off or something, or take one of the back ones off of the plenum, and then find out how much of 1/8 pipe or 3/8 pipe or whatever the one that they want me to test, the size that they want me to test. And we can do that test. So that will be cool. So that will be interesting. And then we can do lots of other tests. So we want to test E85 and M1 and maybe M5 too, because I'm talking to the guys from Tick there. That's what he recommended, because I told him that we want to do a nitromethane test, ultimately not on this motor with this blower, but I do want to test that. And he said, well, if you're going to run M1, just try M5 too. So that's going to be a small percentage of, not a small percentage, but a certain percentage, which I think is 10 or 15% of nitromethane, and then you can run that test while you're there if you're close enough, if you have enough fuel, all that works out. So that would be good. And then also naturally, because it's a blower motor and you're running methanol or nitromethane, you gotta have zoomies on it, right? So I want to do a zoomie versus because he had done that on his motor, and so we want to do a zoomie test. So we do a zoomie versus headers on this, blown. And my point of all this is that we get this super richy dual inlet thing with 2 throttle bodies and zoomies and methanol and stuff, and all on a $200 or $300 4.8 liter motor. So you're doing all this craziness for, to just make the thing way more expensive than it needs to be. So I'll go ahead and show you guys the, if you want, I can bring up the thing that I'm talking about. So this is the dual inlet kind of thing that we're thinking about. Dual throttle bodies. Womp. This one was on a Kenny Bell on a modular motor. So if Admiral's here, modular power, all that. It's a lot. Those are fancy polished or chrome plated tubes that Jim Bell did way back in the day. That was cool. 2 hours west, but come up and visit. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So scroll back. That's perfect. I bet it's already done. No, it's not. It's not already done. It's going to take some work. Car Peeps, Motor Geeks, Burns, what's up? More M90 power. Make it out of PVC pipe from the hardware store. So just link them all together. So make the 90-degree turns and stuff. What size is the blower in this picture? I don't remember. We tested so many of the Kenny Bell ones, but he had 2 8s and 3 2s and 3 6s and all the way up to 4 7 or 4 9 or something. So I don't remember what size this particular one was. Dual M90s, yeah, and that's also why I'm getting that air to water intercooler, because the dual M90s will have the same lower plate. Actually they won't, but it'll have the same flange, so it will bolt on to the high ram flange. It's interesting how the M90 is only a little bit smaller than the LT4 blower, 1.4 versus 1.7. So it's 25%. %. That's what I want to see. Dual M90s. Yeah, we're working on that. Gonna drive down the hill from Tahoe. Is there snow up there yet? Come and get your own Super Richie Skyram. Yeah. Actually, I want to do that too, because I'm pretty sure that's where that idea came from. All of those photos that I posted at West Deck with all the EFI stuff where we did all the stack lengths on the dual plenum stuff. So I want to make one that goes all the way up and comes back down, all the way up to the top of the roof and then comes back down. Because if you have, I don't know, 8 or 10 feet of runner length. Sorry for getting live feed so far off topic. No, but snake discussion is definitely on topic all the time. Man does not live by cars alone. Diamond Pistons came in today with a custom Corolla rod. Should be here tomorrow or the next day. With the new cam, should be ready to wreck some numbers. Nice. Burns, what motor is that for? Is that for the SRT? Let's see. See. I'm 2 hours west, but come on, visit my mom and my dog. Nitro at 30%. Oh, double compound power of the set that was in it was good for 1500 max. I figure I would rather split a block than rotating 70 to quit on me. I do a single throttle body that you could port the blower to with a ram horn duct. Why two throttle bodies? Why two throttle bodies? Because two throttle bodies. Because two is better than one. LQ4 guy, have the Summit truck cam being installed. I know you keep saying you have tested it. I can't find it. It would also be amazing if you did more. If I did more, what? Richard, remember the 307 help you've been giving me? Completely useless. Thanks. I get that a lot. Found a city-owned C30 with a 38,000 big block Chevy under the hood with the good heads at a pick and pull today. Nice. That will be better than a 307. Which Summit cam are you talking about? I have a set of LS Zoomies that I had made. Travis, what size are they? What diameter pipe did you use? Little Snow and Echo Summit. Okay. What's a mid-grade forged piston rod for 351? What brands would you go with? Does Summit have, I mean, I know they have Pro LS stuff, but does Summit have their own brand for forged as well? I'd like to put a blower turbo on the LQ4. I don't know that this M90 would be a good choice for an LQ4. I think that's LQ4, a cammed LQ4 probably already makes a lot of power. And so the blower is just going to kind of be in the way. John Cools, yeah, keep me posted on yours as well. I'm thinking about having Eric W. look at my second head as he's been dropping Richard's name on his channel. Plus, he's really good at it. Yeah, he does. Eric does good work. He shouldn't drop my name, though, because that's not going to get him anywhere. Can a 671 fit on a 5.3? Yes, I have a video up with this running a 671 on a 5.3. Based on email tuner for HP on a cam 2020 Silverado. Maybe try James at Short Tuning. Snake bite on your nose? No, that's not good. I probably have had that happen. I probably have had some kind of snake, not obviously rattlesnake, but a gopher snake or king snake or something when I was little, I'm sure. If you ever choose your Richards on my info too and can pass along so we can do something. Yeah, let me know what's going on, Alan and Bernsey. This is the biggest landslide vote I've ever popped into. Yeah. Well, how do you not vote for coolness? No kissing snakes. Yeah. I know. I see the guys do that in India, kiss the top of the cobra hood. That seems a little sketchy. Oh, the DK's brown snakes. Those are little, yeah. I like we see a lot of the ringneck snakes, and they can be tiny too. Not usually as small as a DK, but green garter snakes. A lot of times you see, especially after they just come out, they're all over the place looking for like girl garter snakes. That's for the SRT4. PJ got in his got in the high sevens. So you got to step your game up. So you got something for him. Richard, plan on building an LS 6-liter single turbo setup. Just watch all the turbo videos. Any tips? Yeah. 6-liter ring gap. You can use the heads that you have, almost any kind of camshaft, and then the turbo will decide what kind of power you can make out of your turbo 6-liter. Spoke about M5 earlier. Have you made a video of an NA motor and different amounts of percentage of nitromethane? No, I haven't run that yet. I do want to, though. Remember back in the late 90s, a guy had a web page showing his build of a dual 90. Yeah, I think that's Chris that did that on his Ford. Yeah, John, don't make it right, man. Just make it run. Just do a Freiburg. Doesn't matter if it's ratty. That's okay. Two throttles is cool, but the setup will be a pain and more possibilities for failure. Yeah, I don't think there'll be a failure problem. It's more the time that it takes just to hook the two Ritchie super drive-by-wire linkage up. And what I do is normally run the tube. A lot of times we'll use the safety wire or whatever, and then run those to a like a common eyelet or a wheel, and then we just use a single pull for both of them. It's not really that big a deal. It's really easy to do as a mechanical thing. 4th Gen 5.3, I want to use stock compression ratio to recommend air gap piston rings to stop the ring from trying to cut the top of the piston. I don't know what you mean by an air gap piston ring. Are you talking about ring gap? If you're running a 5.3 and you're going to run boost on it, and you need to increase the gap, the ring gap. If it's an NA one, then the gap will be tighter. Marathon news, yes. I don't know I don't have a date for that yet, but we do want to do it. I have to work with Chad on that. My zoomies are 1 3/4 primary tubes, 90 degrees straight up from the flange, clears the coils perfect. Okay. Tim, 850 wheel horsepower, all of those things, you don't have to have Carrillo for that stuff. What would the compound turbo setup be for an LS? Well, what is it you're trying to accomplish? Either push it and overtake or break it. Overtake or break. All right. See, I knew Admiral was here. Admiral, did you see the photo, Admiral? I knew that would bring you out. Patiently waiting for the tuna, the real man of tuna, to get me a base tune, and I can get my 06 star and break it in. Snail Q4 and a Hummer. I use it to pull trailers often. Okay, so a 6-liter with that truck cam should work good, right? I ran all of the Brian Tooley Racing truck cams on the 6-liter. So that video's up if you want to see what it does on a 6-liter. So Lightning with dual M90s on top. How much downforce is produced by zoomies? It's going to vary based on the power output. I know that the gentleman I was talking to from Tick today said that he used big tubes on his. He used 2 3/8, which are big for an individual exhaust. He liked it though. It's got to sound cool. I just want to see the flames coming out. I did some calculations, and it looks like 10-inch crank pulley and a 3/8 on the M90 would basically equal a 695 and a 2.6, and would be 17,300 at 6,500. Is a Gen 3 is okay, a higher RPM level? So, Jason, are you asking about running the M90 at 17,000 RPM on a V6. Is that what you're asking? The one that we ran was a Gen 5 blower. It flows more than the Gen 3 does. So you can spin the Gen 3 that fast, but I would recommend doing it on the better blower. Burns not going to win the war, but it could poke somebody's eye out. It's all fun and games right up till that point. Wonder if bullhorns help stop wheelies. I know. James, what's up? Hopefully next year, after I financially recover from TSP 427, need to figure out how to implement nitrous. What's the best way to not blow up my motor? Is start out small. You start out with a 50 shot and then work your way up. So debating on getting a lightning blower for my 4-valve build to mount on the Aviator and run twin throttle bodies for twin turbos. There you go. Admiral, did you see the photo that I posted? So Admiral, this is for you. I know that I'm a little late, but here you go. This is what we're talking about. That's right up your alley. That's a 4-valve. It's a Kenny Bell. It's a dual throttle body, dual gigantic throttle bodies. Jim Bell will be excited that I showed that photo again. Could you use a setup similar to a motorcycle carburetor synchronizing kit? Yeah, it's not necessary because how far they are away. And for what we're doing on the dyno, it just matters that they go to wide open throttle. They don't even have to be synced. They just have to, even if one gets there before the other one, it doesn't matter. It's on the load in anyways. Did the M90 make power on a 5.3? Yes, it did. Gen 3 on a small V8, 4.5 liter. Yeah, the other one's better, but you can run that. Really want to hear my zoomies under load. They're way too loud. Run stand in the garage, yeah. It's only rated at 180 horsepower stock. So why are you wanting to spin the blower up that fast on something that's only making that much power? Watch that AFR. Yep. All fun and games. So your fan gears got caught on the roots rotors. I don't think we're going to put them in that far. Looking for a Gen 5, but have a Gen 3. I'm not afraid to port it. There you go. All a lot of work. And actually for that application where you're trying not trying to max the power output, because obviously you would start with something that makes a little bit more power than that. But that blower will be good on that because that's kind of what they put it on for the 3800. The NA motor makes 300. They detune it a bit with compression, but still that's a good combination. If only the Kenny Bell stuff would work with compounding. Kenny Bell themselves told me not to do it at one point and refused to cooperate. I wonder who would have said that there. I think it's only really important to sync a carb when it's controlling its own piston. I don't see it working on the top of a blower. Well, for us, it doesn't matter. Otherwise, yes, you would want them synced. Richard, Eric was stating your name in admiration and wanting to do collaboration with you. I like Eric. I've talked to him on the phone a couple of times. He seems like a cool dude. He's mentioned you a few times in his last videos. I'd like to do something with him. He does really good work. I'd rather just see twins. Yeah, that's planned too. I did watch that one and all the others. Appreciate your tool test also. I was the one who brought up the dual inlet. Please let me know how this goes. Great videos. Flywheel stuff. Had 95 Mustang GT paper filter stock, 1540 at 90. Aluminum flywheel, aluminum drive shaft, and Canon filter. It went 1490. 1540 at 90 at 92. Cool. Richard, maybe do a video on how to read plugs. That's actually a good idea. Brule and I have talked about that many times because we think that that's kind of a lost art, but it would be good to correlate it with. The problem is, and this is probably why it hasn't been done, is because we have to do it with multiple sets of new plugs, showing what the timing strap looks like and then what it looks like. The problem with the rich lean thing is with the California gas, it leaves deposits on the plugs. It makes it looks like it makes the plugs look like it's rich, but it's not. It leaves black residue on it. I remember Brian Tooley coming out and saying that's way too rich. I'm like, yeah, it looks like that. It's not too rich though, because we know, because the airfield told us, the airfield meter told us that it's actually 12.8. That's not too rich. But so it's hard to, if you have a nice new clean plug and we're running race gas, it's actually a lot easier to tell than it is with the pump gas from California. I was at the NHRA drag race in Pomona. I got pictures with Brittany Force and Matt Hagen. Cool. Michael, you're building a Batmobile. Very cool. And it'll have a Ferrari engine out of an 1980 Ferrari. So is it a 308 then? Going with an LQ4 with an 821 heads and LY6 intake and a sloppy stage 2. Well, that you can see what that made, because I've run that before. Any experience with Millsy Motorsports? No, I'm not. I haven't heard that name before. Let's see. Okay, here you go. Kenny Bell doesn't want the liability of some random abusing their equipment. Found mention of the dual M90 351 Windsor. The page is gone, but it belonged to Mike. Yeah, Mike. Okay. Mike used to work at Magnuson, I think. He got his 88 T-Bird into the 10s with it. Nice. Truck with twin headlight bezels. I mean, there isn't any reason that twin M90s can't do 1,000 horsepower. So 4.9 Kenny Bell too big for a 5-liter Ford. No, right? That's how you match that. You match the displacement of the blower to the displacement of the engine, right? I would think synchronizing throttle bales would be an issue as much as motorcycles with one carb per cylinder. Yeah, IR, anything IR, whether it's carbureted or fuel injected, is also a problem. But synchronizing them on top of the blower, you would kind of want to do that if you have two throttle bodies or two carburetors would be important, I think, so that you have an even amount of fuel flow. Two throttle bodies with fuel below a carburetor, I don't think would be as much of a problem. But I don't know why I don't think you would do that on a Roots blower. Certainly not a 671 or something. It kind of needs fuel going through it. We should all come together and donate a small amount of money, and we could build a drop-in package and donate it to a veteran or first responder. Jason, it's a low compression 8.2 to 1 Mercedes V8, no aftermarket cams available. I'll be doing head and cam from the bigger 5.6, trying to see it in the 350 horsepower range. I see. Are the cams and stuff from the bigger motor? Is it a swap over like that? I'm not familiar with the Mercedes stuff. Was your video about picking the right cam for your 6 low with flat tops or with valve leafs? I've done a lot of 6-liter videos, but it doesn't make any difference. The fact that the cam that you would pick for a 6.0 with valve reliefs and or a dish or a flat top piston, all of that would be the same. The only thing that would, well, no, it wouldn't even change. That wouldn't even change. The only thing that might change is available piston to valve clearance with the LY6 with a valve relief, because that had variable cam, but we didn't get close enough to take advantage of if that valve relief helped the situation. I never tested it. We made sure that we didn't put camshafts in that were too big to fit piston to valve clearance with a regular piston that doesn't have a valve relief. I read the plugs in my Corvette Z06 when the old LS7 was in. The plugs on cylinder 8 was crushed and broken. It's harder to read, right? Leading to believe that's where you had the issue. So that's good plug reading. You need the Steve Morse plug holder. Yep. Hillbrook heads are $1,500 for the 440, but the pistons are still so far in the hole. Small chamber can only bring the compression up so much. I would make it EFI if I kept the 440 in my Winnebago. I really like the idea of the intercooler in the high round, but without a lot more surface area or thickness in the core, it's going to be difficult to control charge temp versus time. It won't be for this application since it's an M90 and we were only running 8 pounds. No brakes. I have 440 aluminum heads. They're trick flows. If R only tells you so much, I'm setting mine up for individual O2s and EGT probes. Why do most fast racers still read plugs, even with all the data in the world? Because it can tell you a lot. I agree. I'm much less of a plug reader than I am of an 802, and even EGTs can be skewed by timing. So I like having a air fuel meter to tell me what's going on. Let's see. $10.5 to 1 autocorrect. Sloppy stage 2. I can hear it, especially at low airspeed. Cam's direct swap heads. Okay, need a tiny bit of work. I'm trying to hold out for an M112 or possibly a TVS 1900 from Range Rover, but I haven't seen one pop up in the pickup part. I did see one Range Rover blower there with it had the 2 intercoolers on it, I think. Please do a video about the GM 572 big block. I fell in love with them, and how much to build, and do you sell a 572 long block by itself? I don't know if they do or not. Somebody does. Flowtech LS3 heads and Liberty heads need a test. I haven't tested either one of those. The guys at West Tech have run I think they're EQ or something. The new castings. They're supposed to be copies of the factory ones. Does anybody have experience with Lenati bootlegger? Yeah, I have a video up, or did a video a long time ago, Speed Secrets one with a Lenati bootlegger cams on a small block Chevy. I haven't done anything with Viper engines other than admired them from afar because I would love to have a Viper GTS. Richard, acetone to gas, 1.5 ounces to a gallon or so. I'll have to look, but that's close. It helps vaporization. I looked at test lab papers. Be neat test, turbo engine, dyno timing, detonation threshold, 87 and up. That's a lot of stuff going on there that I don't know what you're asking for. Or you're asking me to add acetone to gasoline? To what kind of gas? To regular gas? To pump gas? I mean, to 91, to 93, to 87, to 89. and then you're wanting to run it on a turbo motor at varying timing levels at some detonation threshold. I don't have the ability to do that. I don't have knock sensor technology, unless that test would be done on the chassis dyno. No brakes. I've been looking at the Trick Flow 240 and 270s. I don't know which ones I have. Does anyone use Liberty Cathedral heads? I have not. Scrolling. Yeah, the Sloppy Stage 2 did over 500 on the, that was on an LS3, I think. NA LS3 Stage 1 cam, personal experience. I have a G8 with the same cam, 430 wheel horsepower, 550 crank. They're on sale right now. 430 wheel to 550 crank is a pretty big jump. As an IT infrastructure engineer by trade, I don't trust computers. 5.6 liter M117 V8. It's an aluminum bore, and I'm drifting. I can get hot sometimes. 5,000 RPM plus a lot. Blocks are known to pull studs. Saw one of those supercharged Range Rovers at the yard last time I was there too. Sun Valley, the Jaguar V8. That's the first time I saw one over at the one by West Tech, and I liked it because it had a blower, and also because it had intercoolers, and those things always catch my eye. I like the Hellcat swap Viper, but at the same time, whenever I hear it, it just sounds wrong. Yeah, I agree. I like the Viper GTS exhaust much better than I like the side pipes on the Viper convertibles. I saw the Viper engine motorcycle. That is cool. Always thought the Viper GTS was the best looking. Yeah, and then I like the ACR with the wings and stuff on it. 2,000 gram Marquis, 145,000 miles, runs great. 7 psi, too much for stock. No, that would be fine. So I want to run the zoomy headers versus regular headers and see what that does. You know, the internet calculates horsepower. I get it. I'm all in. Let's see. I'd like to see a header test on LS to see if combining the primaries from cylinder 1 and 6 or 3 and 2 would make power from stopping the double fire on the same bank, backing up exhaust flow. Okay, so you want to see custom headers done for that? Now that you have smaller pulleys, will you put the small pulley on the older version of the M90 to see what it's capable? So you want to see the Gen 3 blower also? I have a couple of those. It was a thought, add to fuel and see if it helps, say, 87 get better results, timing and such. That would have to be something that would have to be done on the chassis dyno so that we have knock detection. John, what was your question? Scroll back here and see. I've heard Lanati is good, but I've not used one. The bootlegger looks like it's good lift for my 311. The thing that you need to be concerned about with bootlegger and voodoo cams is you need to take a look and see. Sometimes stability on those can be a problem. We've had issues where you got to put a lot of spring rate on them. kind of want a 3rd gen Viper. For some reason, they seem immune to the price hikes. B10 sounds like a Lambo with Corona. Rain Man, what are you doing, man? Thank you very much. The ACR, yeah. They made that despite Porsche, yeah. 2 extra blowers sitting my wife's way, and they do need to go. So just tell me you want them. I think I have 4 or 5 of those M90s now because we've gotten them from a few. What's his name? I think Brandon sent them to me. W Body King sent them to me and then sent me 2 of them. And then I got a few more from the wrecking yards from the other motors that I got because we just buy the complete motors. So I have a few of those, but I have 2. I know I have 2 of the Gen 5s, and I have at least 2 of the Gen 3s, and I think I might have 3 of the Gen 3s. I think I'm pretty good on. I think I'm pretty good on blowers right now. I think the Viper 10 is called the Ghost or something because it's killed almost everybody that's ridden it. I've seen it. It is really impressive looking. But, you know, it's like having the guys that put these Boss Haas things that put big blocks on them because, you know, a small block powered motorcycle wasn't ridiculous enough. You're going to run the 4V V10 for build it yourself. I don't think that they're going to do that. I don't think that they want to do that anymore. I think that they're putting it in that car. When you pick the NIC cam for the Turbo 3800, what were the secret cam specs that sparked your attention? I had a cam made for it. I already have it. Acetone does not have a high octane rating. It would make 87 worse. You can run 5-to-1 compression with acetone. Oh, that's a good combination. Thanks for the input. I definitely plan on putting a spring pack as well as, yeah, with either cam. That's right. We all have budgets. How many AR 500s would it need to make the Viper faster? Quite a bit. My neighbor that drives the trucks with no mufflers, he's 19, is 1999 Ford Ranger 4-liter. It's around 300 horsepower. Has it turned on, so could not get over the fish story. Alan wants to know what brand of PTFE hose to use. I can weld a nitrogen-cooled plate to mount it to. Nitrogen-cooled plate would be cool. Get rid of that dreaded heat soak. M90 on the 2.2. I think M90 on the trophy 4-cylinder or M90 on the, I think a junkyard M90 on the slant 6 is definitely and with a carburetor, you know, it has to have a carburetor mounted on top of the blower, not on top, but, you know, with an adapter going into the inlet of the blower. You did a burnout in front of your house the other day in a V6. I have not tested any Frankenstein heads. They look like they're pretty good, but I've not run it. All of that stuff came out after I did all my big cylinder head tests. The thumbnail looks pretty well. It is pretty cool looking. I thought it was a ZZP Nick cam. I did run one of those, yeah, but the cam that I had a custom cam ground. You know, custom because everybody needs to have a custom cam. M90 on the Sprint. I don't know if the Sprint motor will turn that. 1 5-gallon can of liquid nitrogen could cool the fuel and all the blower. Yeah, it could. What I want to do is pour the liquid nitrogen on the air-to-air intercooler, and I think that would be cool. I've been wanting to do that for, I don't know, 6 or 8 years now. Your L7 had Frankenstein heads. Were they good? I use hot rod fuel hose, or is there some other kind? The thing I found it, I got a few of these comments. There were guys that wanted the, like the LS3, the test, the head test, and then also we got this for about the LS7 stuff too. Why didn't you do this on a stock 6.2? Like, because you have 800 horsepower worth of head potential, and you're going to put it on a 500 or 600 horsepower motor. You're not testing the head. Look, it made the same power because you don't have enough motor to take advantage of the cylinder head. Does valve spring pressure create a bigger loss on intake than it does on closing to actually make it parasitic enough to get rid of if you have a solid valve train? So I don't know about most of that. Don't understand most of that, or exactly what question you're asking, but I can tell you this. I have a video up where we demonstrated that changing valve spring pressure does change the power output. So as you go up in valve spring pressure, you lose power. So hopefully that answers your question. Richard, yes, it's a 5-speed manual. Is getting on, proving out that it was all of 299.5 horsepower. That's right. Let's see the M90 on smaller displacement engines. Yeah, the Trophy 4-cylinder is a perfect example. If you got a place need to crash, I can head that way next week. My C6Z06 came already modified. Okay, you thought that I thought having the Frankenstein heads on, you'd help avoid the valve drop issue on the LS7. That's a good idea, but the valve dropped anyway. It made power. They'll all say that. So you dropped a valve in the Frankenstein head? I bought some Frankenstein heads for my LS3. There isn't any before and after dyno videos online that I could find. Again, the thing is, even if I don't know what those Frankenstein heads flow, but let's say that they flow 400 CFM. Well, that's enough to make a lot of power. And if you put those heads on a cammed LS3, that's not nearly enough motor to take advantage of a 400 CFM head. It's not going to all of a sudden turn your little 6.2 liter motor into an 800 horsepower motor. You need all the rest of the stuff to make 800 horsepower. What materials for intercooler could survive a liquid nitrogen bath? That's the question. I don't know if just what I would want to put in there is just some cheap run of the mill, offshore air to water intercooler core and hope for the best. That's the way that I would do it. But I don't know that it wouldn't crack. It may. All this 3800 is wanting me to put a 3800 in my E46. Please talk me out of it. I think there are better choices for that chassis than an iron head and iron block V6. There's probably much better choices for that. For some reason, I can't do a super chat, but I will send $10 for the cost of plugs for doing a plug reading video. Collab with Dulcich and Brule. Don't use California gas. Yeah, you probably have to use race gas and see, but and you don't have to send money. But the thing is that spark plugs are a lot now, and we go through multiple sets trying to do that. But the last spark plug video I did, I got the guys from AutoZone to help out. So maybe that's something I could do again. I voted for dual M90s with one throttle body each. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Wait, I'm going to scroll back. I vote for dual M90s with one throttle body each. That is also planned. Yeah. Dropped a valve on the Frankenstein head. That's not good. How much is a custom cam for 3800? It was a lot. Richard, which has better response, drive-by cable or drive-by wire? I'm not a drive-by wire kind of person. I think, yeah, burns. That's what I'm worried about. The welds might crack, and then you'll draw the liquid nitrogen in. I guess what I could do is I could do a crack test. That's probably sounds bad. Probably get banned on YouTube for that. But we could do a test on the intercooler and just see if it works. You know, I could build a tank and put the intercooler in there and just see if it survives. We can do a pressure test on it and go, hey, that would work for one run, because that's really what we need. Because what I want to do is maybe run whatever combination I have, non-intercooled and then intercooled, and then with air to water, and then with ice water, and then with the liquid nitrogen. And what I was thinking about doing is I would maybe build a second tank around the tank that's going to hold all the liquid nitrogen and the intercooler, and I would fill that full of ice or ice water just to try to keep the temperature down. I mean, it's going to be a far cry from what the temperature is of the liquid nitrogen, but that might help with the outgassing a little bit. I was thinking I could seal it and then duct it back to the back. You know, there's been a lot of consideration in the last 7 or 8 years on this. We tested a new 3D printed LS intake manifold. They want a crazy price like $2,000, but I wonder how it holds up to heat. I haven't. I have a 3D printed intake of my own design, but I have not tested yet. I like to put together a vintage drag style setup like the old Buddy Ingersoll Pinto, draw through carb turbo 2.3. That is cool. Maybe you can do a class at a local vocational school. A class for what? Like a automotive performance or something? Yeah, Tim, I get you. I work with liquid oxygen, boils at minus 297. Aluminum will shrink too much and crack. Stainless steel would be better if you want a liquid nitrogen. Build a coil. Yeah, I don't think we're going to make an intercooler out of steel. Start with compressed air. You mean in the core? That's what I was thinking. We would either draw a vacuum on it or pressurize it just to see what's happening. Spark plugs cost a lot, and Denso iridiums aren't the gain everybody thought. I use the iridiums in my only because I got them for free, but I use them in the Bonneville Civic, and this thing right here. I found it. I used it in this. Wah, wah, world's fastest Honda Civic. We did use them in that. I used the IQ31s, which are fairly cold, and they work fantastic. But the thing is, after all the spark plug tests I've done, lots of other plugs would have worked exactly the same. Just have SpaceX for a titanium radiator. That would be cool. James, Richard, that was the greatest answer ever. Folks want to build LS with exotic heads, and I ask how much power they want to make, and they say, wait for it, 450 wheel horsepower. I know. Then just port the stock ones. Or if you have an LS3, just use the stock ones. Drive-by-wire is great with big throttle bodies. You can tune it with more drivability at light throttle. I agree. That's probably the case. Or if you can have a rising rate throttle linkage, that's also beneficial for a big throttle body. But I would say if you can properly tune it, that drive-by-wire works very well. I just hate it because it doesn't always do what I want it to do. And mechanical throttle bodies always do what I want them to do. Let's see. Is your 3D printed design long runner or short runner? It's an adjustable runner. How would you evaluate your success on YouTube? I love YouTube, but for me, it was a great change. It was a big change from doing what I was doing before. It's much better. Liquid nitrogen will boil off, pressurizing whatever vessel it's in. Inside, you can have a valve controlling the flow of liquid nitrogen out of the tank. From the tank, it can flow into a coil. Well, what we were originally envisioning was a bathtub with an air-to-water intercooler and then pouring a whole bunch of liquid nitrogen in it. that was the easy method, but I don't think that will work. But we wanted to really bad. We're going to end our pull at 87% on the dual snorkel throttle body. I like it because I think it looks awesome. Test LS turbo sizing shaft speed for controlling boost with blow-off valves, non-wastegate setup. You want to control boost with a blow-off valve? And shaft speed? I don't have any turbos that I can measure shaft speed on. Going to do the dual snorkel M90 intake on the 3800. If so, can I get one for my Grand Prix with the dual inlet drop the boost? No, you don't want it to drop the boost. You want to increase the boost. Off gas to atmosphere. The coil be placed on the intake charge. Test LS turbo. Okay, we got that. Found that iridiums last so much longer. My plug. Looks like they're new on the 53. Okay. So they work for you. Mechanical operators do what you want them to do until the cable gets stuck. Yeah, that's not good. The funny story about mechanical throttle bodies is the guy at the Silver State. I think his may have even been carbureted, so it was even more analog. But he was in a Jaguar with a Chevy in it, and was they interviewed him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna bang the radar gun at like 200 miles an hour." And my buddy Birdie and I and Jimmy are sitting there. There's no way that car's going that fast. We're just shaking our head. That's a pipe dream. It won't go that fast. And so they were bragging about it. They turned out to be nice guys because we bought them a drink and stuff because we felt so sorry for them at the awards banquet. But they pulled up to the line because at the Silver State they start you every minute on the faster classes, and then every 30 seconds. So at least that's the way that they used to do it. And so they pull a car up and go, okay, 10 seconds, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And he takes off, and then the next car rolls up, and they let that one motor off down the road for a little while. And then they start the next one. Well, the Jaguar pulls up. They go, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And he drops the green flag, and the car just dies because the throttle cable broke. And I'm like, dude, why didn't you get out, take your shoelace, tie it to the cable, and tie it to the throttle linkage? You only have to go wide open throttle. It only has to last a 90-mile race. They pulled off to the side. So they made it like, I don't know, 7 feet or something of the 90 miles. I'm like, man, I'm so disappointed that you didn't get out and make that happen. What do you think of the V12 rotary engine? That's cool. Magna Fuel. Are you going to do a Silver State? I would love to do another Silver State. Liquid nitrogen, you can take an air-to-water cooler, plug one water port on the other, put a pipe pointing up from a fitting to the neck, and size up the pour in liquid nitrogen through a funnel. I don't know if that will work. We thought about doing the air-to-water, but we're worried about the same thing. We're worried about it cracking, and then we're worried about it outgassing, and then we're worried about it constantly pouring that in during a dyno run. You should test some sort of makeshift VGT setup by just manually setting it at a different point and not using a wastegate. Send you a drawing of simple liquid nitrogen intercooler you could build if you really wanted it. I thought about it and believe it would work. Okay. Wonder how an M90 would sound on the VR6. It would sound like it sounds on everything else, right? It would sound cool and awesomeness because it's a boost. It's full of boosty goodness. And on that note, it is time to go. Thank you guys all for showing up, and thank you for the $50. That's always very helpful. So be able to buy drinks or something, or that's tubing for the dual snorkel thing. So now I need to get online and see how much tubing is. I was thinking about doing it in steel, but then I would want it chromed or something so it looks fancy. So I probably will just do it out of aluminum. So I think dual 4-inch merged together would be good. And probably a 90 would send them out to the sides. I kind of want them to wrap around, so probably have to get U-bends. YouTube life is kind of strange. For me, it's not any different at all from what I was already doing. I mean, I do it, in front of a camera or whatever, but that's not any different than I was writing stories before, so it was the same kind of thing. It takes more time to do filming and editing and all that stuff, and then you just have to change the way that you're doing things, but it still works good. And the cool thing is you get to meet lots of good people and stuff, because I didn't do that as much when I was writing, because I just would stay to myself. And I would just go and do the testing and write the story, and then I would never be in any of the photos. Only at the very end of my writing career did I start inserting myself into the lead photos. And they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, in case you haven't noticed, if you haven't looked at everything that's going on in the electronics world, in the digital world, this is what sells." And they're like, "You can't do that. You can't promote yourself." I'm like, I said, "Just wait. This is coming." And so, as it turned out, when the magazines went away, they're like, that when you were doing your crazy poses with your mouth open and waving your hands or whatever, he said, those were by far the best selling ones. I said, "I know, because that's what people want. You got to know what the people want." Use copper for liquid nitrogen. Computer overclocking use. LN2 port right into 100 degree CPU. Okay. Yeah, Sean, I agree. The AI stuff is going to be, and they're going to be able to do this too. So it'll be, if I can hire AI, and then it can just do all the stuff for me, and I could sit and go catch snakes and, I don't know, go to Bonneville and stuff. That'd be awesome. And on that, 2 more minutes. It's always like that. It is. Can't believe you called me out, James. That's not right, man. You know how we do it. I will see you guys all tomorrow. James, come on, man.